What's up, guys? Welcome back to Among the Fence. I'm your host, Aaron, and if it's your first time seeing one of my videos, I'd like to welcome you to my channel where I do music reviews and we can just sit down and talk about the things we love or hate. And if you got anything you want me to review, go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what it is. And if you do that, or you just happen to like what you see here, don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon. That way you get notified when I do upload. That way, if you make a request, you also don't miss out. And I also have a whiteboard here where I'll throw up your request. That way you see if it's coming in the future. On today's review, we're going to be checking out the new album, East of Eden, by the new band, Mother His Mother. Mother His Mother is a fairly new band from Bulgaria, I believe. They started about 2019. I could be wrong on that as well. They only have one album, and they are a deathcore, metalcore, heavy, hardcore kind of band. And I believe, again, I could be wrong, they're fairly new, so there's not like a whole lot of information out there on them. I think that there's only 2 people in this band, which is insane. If you listen to this album, it sounds like they got at least 5 or 6. And being that this is a new band and they are fairly young, I'm assuming that they mixed and produced this entire project, which is also fairly impressive because I wasn't really sure what to expect on that aspect. I was not sure if things would be clear, not sure if, you know, certain instruments would be overpowering or things would just sound awkward. But honestly, the mix in this is pretty smooth over, and the things that should be loud are loud, and things that should take more of a backseat do take a backseat. It's mixed pretty well. I wouldn't say it's over the top professionally done, but at the same time, it's not like overly compressed. It's not overly raw, which, I don't know, when you're first mixing and producing stuff and mastering things, I feel like it'd be kind of easy to kind of get into the habit of that. Like, you just have to overdo it. But honestly, this is done at pretty close to professional grade, I feel like. And this album feels musically inspiring and experimentative. It's kind of all over the place, but at the same time, it does have a focus. The vocals, even when I was reading the lyrics, they could be pretty tough to understand just because of just how guttural they can get. They're super intense. Even if there is a song that you're listening to and you're like, this riff is just kind of okay, or, you know, this drum pass is just kind of whatever, it moves along pretty quickly and it's always changing. So there's always a super sick, fat, juicy riff, or there's always like this crazy bass line, or, you know, just some kind of melodical part to every single song. Almost every song on this is pretty enjoyable, and I found myself, you know, having a little bit of a wow moment on basically every single song. The first song on the album is Introduction, or A Storyline of a Lost Soul. Is this very beautiful acoustic piece, and it's kind of haunting and eerie, but at the same time it's kind of delightful. It's weird. It's very enjoyable, but it does have this kind of like dark emotion in the background. And the second song, Memories, jumps right into it with a riff that I dig quite a bit, and the vocals are good, but I found myself not really being into not so much the tone, but more of the phrasing, or I guess the rhythm of the vocals it would be. And the drum work, it's pretty good, but one thing I didn't like about the drums quite a bit is the tone. I really liked just the overall sound of the drums, and like I said, there's just a lot of different elements to these songs, and Memories in the bridge has like this synthy kind of thing going on, and I really enjoyed that too. It didn't stand out from the song, and it didn't make you go like, what the hell is this? It actually blended in really well, and it kind of added to the story really good. Like, it added to the narrative and everything that was going on. The next song, Daylight, has harsher vocals, a more complex guitar work, and the bass is quite a bit more prominent, which made it feel more raw, almost like the death metal elements were just standing out quite a bit more in this song. And the bridge gets pretty groovy, and then there's like this mellow part just before the breakdown, which is just insane, and you could hear just how talented the vocalist is when his voice just drops down so low. My 2 favorite songs on the album are 7 Years Same Cycle and Issues. And on 7 Years Same Cycle, I mainly like it for the music. It starts out with this more melodic guitar work, and the music is just very open, and the vocals are more in the background, and it just makes it sound like it's in a void or something. It's just, like I said, it's just very open, And the lyrics aren't that deep or that intense. They're still well written, but there isn't like a whole lot to them as far as like just digging into it, what it means. But the music just slaps so freaking hard. And the guitar solo that's in the breakdown while the vocals are still there is just perfection. And on Issues, the riff is super dynamic and the vocals mix really well, especially like the different styles of vocals that are going on. And this might be kind of a dumb thing to say, but this is just something that popped into my head on the few times I listened to it. The mix and the rawness in Issues reminds me a lot of August Burns Red's second album, Messengers. Just the overall feel of that. And like, if you listen to it, you're like, this is going to sound anything like it. But like, it just the mix and the rawness. And especially like some of the like the drum passages and some of the riffs, it kind of like took me back to listening to Messengers the first time. And there's some songs on this album that have features like Voices, which has Tony S. And then there's a song Auricular Spectacular. I believe that's how that song is pronounced. And it has Danny O.T. And I gotta admit that I'm not familiar with either one of these artists, and I'm not really sure what they brought to the songs, but I gotta say that the songs were extremely heavy. Like, these are like the main deathcore songs on this album, I felt like, especially Voices. It kind of reminded me a lot of like Thy Art Is Murder in a way. It's just super, super heavy. And in the bridge, I kind of feel weird admitting this. This has never happened to me before on any of my reviews, but in the bridge, the vocal style in it kind of made me a little uncomfortable in a way. I was sitting there listening to it with headphones on the very first time I ever listened to this song, and just the vocals are kind of like, it reminded me of like the girl from like The Ring with that weird like deep throat, like shuddery style vocal thing. But with the headphones on, it sounded like somebody was like directly behind me. Like it was just so vulnerable in a way, and the vocals are just so raw, and like I said, they're in the very front of the mix, so it's just right there. And even though it made me uncomfortable, I felt like it did what it was meant to do, and I kind of enjoyed it, and it worked well. On Auricular Spectacular, I gotta admit that I wasn't that big of a fan of the riffs that were in this song, but like I mentioned before, they're ever changing. So as soon as I was like kind of decided I didn't really like a riff, it moved on, and then there was something way heavier and way groovier. And I gotta say that the drum work on this song is probably the best on this album, especially towards the end. And the vocals, again, are just absolutely insane. But like, I'm not really sure what these guys, like, I feel bad saying this because I'm not really sure what these guys added to these songs, because I'm not sure what the features, like, I'm not sure what they sound like. It's not like hearing freaking Eminem on like a Rihanna song where you could just point it out right away and be like, yep, I could tell that's who that is. But I gotta say, everything I heard on this was good. So the parts that they did add to it, even though I wasn't sure what it was, I mean, it sounded awesome. There wasn't a part that I didn't like on these songs, other than, like I said, the riffs, but I mean, it only lasted maybe 15 seconds. And I am familiar with one of the features on this album, and it is from the song Oblivion 1. It's either Oblivion 1 or Oblivion I, but I'm pretty sure it's Oblivion 1. And it features Danny Georgiev. I believe that's how you say his last name. He is from Born of Vengeance, which I'm more familiar with that band's work. I haven't heard a whole lot of them, but I do know of the band. And I gotta say, his part in the song was used very well. It stands out pretty well. It's a lot more isolated, so I was able to tell, like, okay, like, this isn't a familiar voice on this album, so I could tell that this is obviously him, and it worked out really well. And this song also has some of the sexiest freaking riffs on this album. They're all good, but this one just stood out so much. I'm pretty sure after I got done listening to this, like, almost every single time I listened to the song, I had this deep craving where I wanted to play my guitar. Now, there's only one song on this album that didn't really jive with me all that well, and that was the second to last song, End of These Days. For some reason, everything just felt off to me. The vocals felt just kind of misplaced, the way how just the style they were in. The guitar work felt like it was just kind of off. The drums were good, but I don't know, I just didn't really click with this song all that well. Like, every single song on this album had like a hell yeah moment for me, but this song I listened straight through a few times, and it just wasn't a moment in it where I felt like I wanted to go back and listen to it again. And that's not to say the song isn't bad. There's tons of dynamics to it. The vocals are still just absolutely insane. I think it was just came down to the song. Like, there's just so much going on in this song. It's absolutely crazy. So it's almost like in the story of the album, it's kind of like the climax or like the peak or like just when everything is at its final moments, which is kind of perfect for where it's placed in this album. But I just couldn't get into it. And then it goes into the outro pretty well, but also I felt like the outro, it just didn't really fit all that well either. It's got like this acoustic part that's very beautiful, and it goes throughout about 40% of the song, and then it comes in with this riff that's pretty juicy and it sounds good. But it sounded more like an interlude that should be placed more in the middle, or maybe like around like the seventh song on the album, and then you would have End of These Days as the last song. I don't know. Or maybe just have an acoustic ending without the main riff. It just felt like the writing style for it was just a little bit off for a song that's supposed to be a conclusion and it's supposed to end everything. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. So I enjoyed this album quite a bit. And I gotta say, it is pretty impressive that these two guys, being as young as they are, were able to come out with something just as good as this is. The musicianship, the production on it, just everything. The lyrics throughout every single song are well written. There's only a few songs in here where the lyrics are more superficial, but even then, they're not dumb lyrics. There's still effort and thought put into them, which even if they're superficial, it doesn't feel like you're losing brain cells while you're listening to it. I can't even fathom putting something out like this at the age that these guys are in, with the band that's as new as this is, and just only two guys. Like I said, it feels like there's at least 5 or 6 guys in this band. So with all that said, I gotta give East of Eden by Mother His Mother a 7.8 out of 10. For a fairly new band, these guys did well, but I gotta say that like musically, there's just a lot going on. Like, there isn't one focused direction that this album is pointing to musically. It feels like it's just kind of scattered all over the place, which might have been their intention. And if it is, then hell yeah, they did an excellent job. But for me, a lot of the riffs, even though they were changing a lot, there wasn't a whole lot of differences between them throughout, not even like just in the song, but from song to song. So sometimes like the riffs, even though they're like super heavy and you're like into it, they still kind of sounded like the same kind of riff progressions that you heard on the song before. Even though they sound good, they do have that very similar sound to them. And sometimes a couple of the riffs, when it changes, they weren't as good as what the other riff could have been, and there wasn't really a whole lot of need to change the riff. And even though I didn't give it a whole lot of praise, the drums and the bass on this album are phenomenal. There's some prominent bass parts that stand out really well. There's some amazing drum fills. It's the structure between the drums and the bass make a beautiful foundation for all the craziness that's going on with the guitar work and for the vocals. And I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't listened to any of these songs, because like I said, they're very new. This album just recently came out and this band is very new. So I'm going to put a link for the playlist in the description below. If you're into deathcore, metalcore, or just want to give it a try and see what it sounds like, go ahead and click on it, give a couple songs a listen, and let me know what you would think, and let me know what you would rate it. And if you enjoyed this review, feel free to give it a like. If you didn't enjoy it, go ahead and give it a dislike. But at the same time, let me know why you liked it or why you didn't enjoy this review. I'm getting a lot of people who are like letting me know I shouldn't give my opinion so much, but honestly, 100% of my reviews are nothing but opinion, because music is entirely subjective. I could tell you something sucks and it's absolute trash and you shouldn't listen to it, and you can listen to it and it could be the best thing you've ever heard. So yeah, just let me know. Maybe I could be doing something better, I guess. And again, if you got something you want to review, go ahead and leave it below. Throw it up on the whiteboard for you. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notified when I do upload. Doing any of these things helps me out tremendously. Liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, anything. And I appreciate it more than you guys could ever imagine, especially if you just leave a comment telling me I suck. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch my video and leaving your opinion. And with that said, I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day or night whenever you happen to be watching this. Please stay safe out there, and I will talk to you guys next time.
I was